I went through a long process, thorough process of interviewing a lot of great candidates, college and pro candidates.
It does really feel like Nick Caley was the guy from start to finish. And I do find it interesting, if you take a look at this press conference, that DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caley are up here. There is no Texans general manager, Nick Caserio. Because obviously, when we talk about Nick Caley, this is a guy who worked with Nick Caserio in New England, and these guys both went to the same school. So I think, at least from an optics perspective, I think that the Texans want people to believe that this was largely a DeMeco Ryans decision. But I am guessing, just based off of all the times we heard Nick Caserio talk about collaboration, that this is something that also was heavily involving Nick Caserio before the decision was made.
Obviously, I got a history with Cole dating back to my time in New England when he was our offensive line coach and I coached the tight end. So
that moment right there, it's another sign that Nick Caserio's fingerprints are on it, but the Texans, for whatever reason, maybe it's because of their paranoia about being considered Patriots South with Bill O'Brien, with Jack Easterby, and with others back in the day. It does seem like it's pretty obvious that this is a lot of Nick Caserio going on right now. Something to keep in mind. There are prior relationships here, and I think DeMeco probably wanted to keep Bobby Slowick around, but he was probably pressured by others to move him out. And I'm sure that DeMeco eventually came to the decision just based off of the way that the offense was, the fact that it didn't adapt. They kept on saying, like, we're going to do what we do, whatever the fuck that means. There are a lot of reasons that you could get mad at just the things Bobby Slowick said, let alone the actual execution on the field.
With the decision to retain Cole and promote him to offensive line coach, just kind of what went into that decision, and what's your confidence level on him, being a part of last year's staff, kind of fixing some of those issues?
Very fair question. Because Popovich staying around, Nick Caley, who has the previous ties to New England, and to Nick Caserio being brought in, does lend itself to the idea that the changes this offseason are more Nick Caserio decisions than DeMeco Ryans decisions. If we're talking about the pie chart of how much input from Nick Caserio went in, how much input from DeMeco Ryans went in, I would imagine that Caserio has more, probably slightly more, than DeMeco Ryans. Maybe it's more than slightly more. But Cole Popovich staying around, previous Patriots ties, Nick Caley coming in, Nick Caserio being here, it does feel like this is a compromise of sorts for DeMeco Ryans. Here's DeMeco answering that question from Sam Warren of the Houston Chronicle.
Getting Cole as our offensive line coach to lead that room, just having one voice to lead it, feel really strong about that. Cole helped a lot of our young players when it came to developing. He had a really great relationship with a lot of guys, and guys think very highly of Cole and what he's able to do. And I think him having a prior relationship with Nick as well, and them being able to work together and them to hit the ground running instantly, I think that also led to my decision. And
so he's even admitting it right there. That's a part of this. But it's not like he sounds resistant to it. Honestly, I don't think he would acknowledge that if he was resistant to the idea that the previous relationship between Nick Caserio and Nick Caley would be something he wasn't a fan of.
Was he involved at all in kind of the consultation of potential OCs, and kind of involved in that decision on making the decision to bring Nick here?
I had to hire the OC.
I had to hire an OC. That's an interesting answer. I'm going to have to think about that one. How do you feel about it?
You talked about, DeMeco, you talked about the players, but can you talk about your relationship with Nick Caserio?
Yeah, I got a lot of respect. I mean, I came into the league in 15. I was hired by New England, and he was there.
Let's pause this. Go back a couple of frames. It's an interesting face that he's making when Caley's getting asked about his relationship with Nick Caserio, don't you think? I'm definitely reading too much into it, but just something to note as he gets asked that question. We'll play it one more time. It's kind of like that meme of Daenerys Targaryen, where she's, I think, getting asked a question by was it by Sansa? Back in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, she's a little bit condescending with the answer.
DeMeco, you talked about the players, but can you talk about your relationship with Nick Caserio?
Yeah, I got a lot.
I'm sorry, I'm reading too much into it. Look at his face. I'm sure I'm reading too much into it.